Welcome to Code, Deploy, Go Live podcast, episode 24. I'm Andrew Connell, and I'm here with Julie Turner. If you want to watch this episode as a video, head over to our YouTube channel where you'll find the link in the show notes. In this episode, after catching up on a few known bugs and challenges related to the SharePoint framework that SPFx developers should know about, we tackle data-bound controls, or smart controls as they're also known. Should you use them or should you avoid them? Guess what? We got opinions, and that's what we're covering in this episode. So stay tuned to stay informed. Recorded live, January the 23rd, 2026. Hey, Julie, how are you?
Hey, AC, good save. Well done, sir.
You're laughing because I've got the script here that I was reading for the intro, and apparently, I guess I did it. I deleted the last line that usually says like, hey, here's the day we're recording, so I get it right. And I'm looking around at my calendar like, what day is it today?
You panic and you're like, and I'm like, oh boy, good
Something
save.
was supposed to be there. I missed it.
Well done.
How are you
sir.
today?
I'm doing all right. You know what? I'm actually, since he will never hear this, it's okay to rant about this, but my husband went away for the weekend. Left yesterday afternoon. He's out skiing with his buddies. This is awesome. I actually wish he did guy-related outings more often in the year, but he has this one, and so he's out with his buddies, so it's just me and my bug at home. And the thing that I first notice is how much cleaner my kitchen is and how happy I am about it.
Nice.
And he keeps blaming the child, and now I'm realizing that maybe it's not the child. Maybe that's not why my kitchen is a disaster. Anyway, I miss him, even though I like my clean kitchen. But yeah, no, all good. Things are great. The new last season of Queer Eye started, and my husband's also not home to make fun of me while I binge watch that and sob on the couch. So, it's been good. It's been good. And my son, 13-year-old child, asked if we could do pizza and movie night tonight.
Sweet.
Asked me, said, can we get pizza and watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3 again? I was like,
yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so we're recording this on a Friday night. The episode's coming out on a Wednesday. So on a Friday night, it's like, it's not a school day tomorrow. Like, what the heck? Why not? Let's do it.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying. But anyway, so yes, everything is just sunny in my world right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny you say that about the clean kitchen. I feel the same way. And I actually, so I'm looking around my office. That is an absolute disaster. We had new windows installed, removed and installed, and over right during around New Year's. And so everything had to get moved 3-4 feet away from every window. My desk is literally up against a window. And I took the time to say, you know what? I'm getting my office organized. Things have just piled up, gotten to be a mess. I got to get everything all sorted. And I got through about a quarter or a half of it. So I've got little piles all over the place. I'm also in a spring cleaning, selling everything I possibly can on eBay. The dogs are avoiding me right now. So I made $1,000 off eBay of stuff I don't use anymore.
Ooh,
but I'm still got a whole bunch of more stuff to do. And there's I have 4 bins of cables. I've been through 2 of them. I've got 2 big trash bags next to me. So I'm just
wow.
I'm the kind of person that if I can see chaos, my mind is chaos and it's distracting. So I've got to get everything all cleaned up.
That's how I feel too, which is why I hide out my office all the time, because my husband and son are chaos monsters. They do not care if there's clutter everywhere. And it literally makes me mental. So when I go downstairs to be in my happy place, which is my kitchen, and it looks like a bomb went off all the time, it is no longer my happy place. So it's a tough situation because I can't put my need to have perfect organization on them when they don't need it. You know what I mean? I'm asking them to be something they're not so that I can be comfortable. That just doesn't feel particularly fair, but it does stress the hell out of me. We need to talk about the eBay thing. My son wants to sell his Xbox X that I bought him. Yep. I'm like, what's the best way to do this? So I'm going to definitely pick your brain on that because I want to sell it for him, but I don't know. I've never sold anything on eBay, so there's got to be tips and tricks that you can give me.
I did definitely do that. I've sold. I sold my old NAS, my network attached storage. I got a new one. I sold some microphones, a switch, nice. A network switch, not like a Nintendo switch.
Yeah.
I've got an Xbox to sell with a couple controllers and a bunch of games. I've got a Nintendo Wii to sell. Just
Oh, wow. All right. You got lots.
3 monitors, 2 TVs. I'm like, get rid of. I want to throw it all away, but I can't throw stuff away. So I want to put something in a landfill. So I'm just like, okay, somebody will buy this. And in the past, I'm like, I don't want to sell this because I'm only going to sell it for like $10. I'm like, you know what? You pay shipping. Screw it. I'm not going to be. This is easy. I'll just do it. And so I have a pile of boxes. That stuff that's been shipped to the house. I have a pile of empty boxes in my office. First, Meredith, my wife's like, can we get rid of these? I'm like, no, just put it in the office. And now I have a pile of them because I'm going to need a box to ship something. Like literally, I have like something ready to go onto eBay, and some dude's going to get a little Switch, and he's going to be like, why is it from like this Athletic Greens bag? Like, it's because it's what I had. Shut up, man. You bought it off eBay. It's not like you bought it from Best Buy and you got a good packaging. So
100%.
Anyway.
100%.
Anyway.
Cool.
So I've been over the last, that was my response to your, like, what's going on. I've got, like, this past week, yesterday, I just wrapped up teaching a 2-week SharePoint Framework workshop. I'm loving this new format I'm doing now, to where I teach. It's either a 1-week or 2-week workshop. So you can buy like just the first week, which is just the think about it as like fundamentals type stuff. So last week was, what is the SharePoint framework? How do you do like development? What's debugging like? And how do I do web parts, property panes, stuff like that, and React and data access. And so it's table stakes of what every SharePoint framework is going to end up wanting to know and build. And then week 2 was all the different types of extensions. And then here's some optimization for like production ready apps. So like managing your bundles and all that kind of crap. So you can get week 1 or week 1 and 2 and really engaging. I mean, I love it because it's so much easier for me to teach, and it's easier. There's so much less prep work that has to be done in terms of like trying to market it and all this stuff. It just feels like it's more attainable to people, so it doesn't cost as much, and it also doesn't cost as much. So I'm loving this approach. It's how I do my Copilot developer course, and I've got a one for building Teams apps. So just like personal apps and tabs, single sign-on, dialogue, stuff like that, coming up in February. So, but there's one thing that got under my skin at the beginning of this week that I wanted to call out. That before we start jumping into some of the things we want to talk about today. So on last Sunday evening, so I don't even know what day that is off the top of my head right now, but I can check really fast. January the 18th. September. Wow, I'm falling way back.
Falling off a cliff.
Yeah. So Microsoft added something to M365, like when a new version of GPT, the GPT model came out in the last year, they would say, try GPT-4.1, try GPT-5, try GPT-5.1.
Yeah, right.
Well, they added something on last Sunday that was try Claude. And I'm like, And we talked a little bit about this in a previous episode, about some of the stuff I ranted on. So I won't go into it a whole lot right now. But even when you go in the support document, it says that when you do this, it gives you access to Claude's models. In other words, it gives you access to Opus and or Sonnet. Now, this only applies to the researcher agent in Copilot. And it just, frankly, it pissed me off because I'm just like, you guys, I mean, I know Microsoft sucks at product naming, right? Especially the M365 group. But this is like the most, this is disingenuous, and it also implies something it's not, because when they say try Claude, well, Claude is like this whole platform of like with the orchestrator and the concept of skills and sub agents, and there's Claude Code, and there's Claude. Now there's Claude Cowork, which is freaking awesome. There's Claude on the web. There's Claude Desktop. There's a whole API piece to it. There's an SDK where you can use it to build your own agent, and Claude just uses their 2 models, Sonnet and Opus, as the LLM piece to their platform. So when Microsoft says try Claude, that's bullshit, because it's more like try Claude's models. So I'm getting these people that are coming back to me are like going, oh, it's not really, is it really that big of a deal and make that kind of a change? I'm like, well, when they did it before, they didn't say try ChatGPT. They said, try these two models. It's like, or try GPT-5 or whatever. It's not try ChatGPT. So they're like, well, what do you expect them to do? Say, try Claude's models? You think people are going to understand that? I'm like, and you think people understand, if you're talking about those same people, you think those same people understood what it said, try GPT-5? They're like, I'm using Copilot. What is GPT-5? They don't care about that crap. So it just is so disingenuous and misleading to people. So I like immediately after that came out, I had like 5 people in the first day it came out. They're like, are you going to stop using Claude and now use Copilot for your stuff? Because now you can use Claude. I'm like, you don't get it, dude. You don't get it. Sonnet and Opus, big deal. Yeah, I like those models. Those are 2 of my favorite models that are out there. And I know to each their own, cool. And I'm glad that they're actually doing this because then it gives people the choice. Use the model that you feel is best for you. And sometimes it is best for you. Sometimes you just feel like it's best for you and you just like it more than a different model. So choice is good. I like that. But don't tell people you're getting one thing when you're actually getting something totally different. It's like, no, this doesn't change anything for me. All this does is just piss me off and gave me something to talk about on LinkedIn this week.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because we recorded Ask and Praxis yesterday, but the week before the episode before that we did on January 7th, we did an episode we called "What the Bleep is Work IQ."
Oh my God, yes.
And so essentially it ended up being a lot of my episode because I was trying to basically help people navigate or understand like the different bits and parts of it and how the marketing terms are just coming in and really it's like graph, this is graph, this is that, and one of the conversations that came up was around Claude and people were like, oh, well, Claude, blah, 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 Claude. And I was like, and in the chat, I was doing and I did say it out loud as well, but I'm like, listen, Claude equals Copilot. Like as far as like making an analogy, right? Claude is not ChatGPT-5. Claude has models like Sonnet. You know what I mean? And so we were having this discussion because people were very confused about this. And, and I was like trying to separate out and be like, no, anyway. So we'll link that episode in the show notes because I did go through that in some detail. Probably everybody who's going to be listening to our show already understands that difference. But if you don't, I went into a lot of detail about them in that episode. So you could go back and watch that episode of Ask and Praxis.
To your point, I don't think people really do understand it. I think a lot of people, more people than most people think, more people don't understand some of these nuances. And like even my friends that were really dialed in with this stuff, when you told me, hey, check out, we got Claude. I'm like, I looked at the doc, I'm like, no, you didn't. You got Sonnet and Opus. He goes, no, we actually got Claude. I'm like, no, you didn't. He's like, well, what am I missing? Like, you're missing their agent framework. You're missing their computer use thing. You're missing skills. You're missing artifacts. You're missing memory that it builds memory for you. And so every time you come to have a conversation with it, it has context on you. When I go to Claude, it knows that at home I have a unified network. It knows that I use Home Assistant at home. It knows that I'm a SharePoint Framework developer. It knows that I do team stuff. It knows I'm a TypeScript person. It knows I'm on Mac. With everything that I ask it. But Copilot doesn't do that. That's not a fault of Copilot. It's a feature of what Claude does.
Well, to be fair, Copilot does a little bit of that. And we did actually talk about that on that episode of Ask and Praxis. There is a little bit of memory stuff in Copilot now. So to be fair, but it's not as extensive as Claude for sure. So, and it's different too. I don't even know that you could compare the two features because they're very different. The way Claude does memory and the way Copilot does memory are very different. So, but yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, I just don't want to make. I mean, I think for those who know, it's pretty obvious. For those who don't know, it is extremely confusing, and I don't think that is a statement about those people not knowing, because I think it's not clear in how it's communicated almost anywhere either. Like people, when you see AI talked about in the media, they tend to reference the product by the company. So, Claude, Copilot, whatever. And then sometimes they'll just mention models randomly, and it doesn't really make sense, and they never really explain it. So I think it's pretty easy to get confused, especially since ChatGPT, the models always were named similar, and that was sort of the starting point. And so we never got to a point where it became obvious that the orchestrator plus user interface might be named differently than the models they are using, is I guess what I want to say.
Okay, and I know this sounds like I'm being like nuanced here, but I want to clarify some of the stuff you just said. So yes, everything you said I generally agree with, right? You've got companies, you've got products, and you have those products that use models. Companies, that's OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, Microsoft.
Yep.
You've got products, you've got Gemini, you've got Claude, you've got Copilot, you've got ChatGPT, and then you've got models. So ChatGPT, the product, was named after the models it uses. So ChatGPT uses GPT, the models GPT that OpenAI does.
100%. But because they were the same name and that was the first, I think that people did this originally and never made that separation of concerns is what I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you are. And that's how I wanted to add nuance there.
Yeah, 100%.
I can bitch and moan about this. I can keep bitch. I have bitched and moaned about this, and I can keep bitching and moaning about it. But we want to be a little more positive instead. And let's talk about some SharePoint Framework bugs. Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, what?
See what I did there? Okay. There's three things that we wanted to touch on before we get into like the meat and potatoes, what we're going to talk about today. And they are there's two of them that are bugs. And there's one that is a change that is coming soon. It's supposed to come in January. It may be out by the time this episode drops. I think it's supposed to be, but I don't know, and stuff always slides. So let's just say coming out soon. So the first one, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about this, but the first one is one that is, and we'll give you there's some links in the show notes, and there's two of these are called out in the issue list, the SharePoint SP Dev Docs issues list. Was that aka.ms/SPFx-issues, I think is the URL. That'll take you there. So one of them is around the new document library experience that's breaking all kinds of extensibility things. And the gist on this, actually, do you want to do this one? I'll let you do this one because you've done. Sorry, I put you on the spot, but I know more about the other one.
No, it's okay. You just blindsided me. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. So
this is actually planned out, everyone. I swear.
Until it wasn't.
We had a pre-show. I swear to God, we're looking at notes.
Yeah, no, the new the thing that's confusing about this is there's one piece that is specifically affecting us as SharePoint Framework developers, and that is that the command set extensions that are on document libraries, while still working, get relegated into like an overflow menu, and you can't get them back up to, the main area. And I mean, the primary point of building a command set on a document library is probably that you want it to be front and center to your users because it's probably a primary function that you want them to use. So to have it get just pushed to the bottom of the lists without you having any ability to like fix that is probably a pretty big issue. Anyway, so that was listed. That particular issue that Dan Toff posted has a lot of other out-of-the-box core features that are broken too. So it is a sort of summary of a bunch of things. One of the other things that I think is important to developers, because we have a tendency, if we're building SharePoint Framework solutions that are extending lists, libraries, etc., we have a tendency to want to hide the folder menu in the user experience. And that was pretty easy to do. Classically, and up until very recently, even in the modern UI, you could go into the library or list settings, you could turn off folders, and then from a user experience perspective, all the places in the UI that would allow a user to create a folder or upload a folder or whatever were missing. And so that cleaned that up and kept people from creating folders where you don't want them to create folders, which can be super important if you're doing extensibility on top of that list or library. And so the problem is that while that feature is still there and it sort of works, there are new pieces to the user experience that aren't affected by that setting that allow users to sort of still get folders into those lists or libraries. So it's kind of a real bummer. And there's some other things, and if you're interested as a user, you should definitely go and check out that post from that GitHub issue from Dan Toffet. And if you're experiencing any of those issues or have other issues related to the new document library, you should absolutely chime in. We've talked about this many, many times on our show, but everybody raising their voices to say, me too, or yes, this is my experience, or I'm also experiencing this, is critical for the Microsoft product group to understand that this is a big issue. They need to address it quickly. And if you don't chime in and just go, oh, well, somebody else already reported it, even if it's just a liking or a thumbs upping on that issue, that is metrics for them. That is telemetry for them to understand how big the issue is. And so it's really important that you interact with it if it's something you're seeing, something that's bothering you, or you have additional information that isn't in that item.
Yeah, I'm glad you just said that, because that's the big thing that I want to highlight there, is that not only doing a me too, doing a +1 to it, even if it's as minimal that you sign into your GitHub account and you simply go to the main issue or any of the specific comments that you want to do this, or both, thumbs up, thumbs down, react. You have a little emoji. You have a very small list of emojis you can play with, right? And when you do that is a signal that Microsoft does see these things. That is a signal that shows there's another person who gives a damn, or there's another person who held up a sign saying, show me where Microsoft touched my extension and broke my stuff for my customers, right? That is another, that helps. And you might not think it does, but trust me, like Julie and I can see a back channel conversation going on about this, and it really does. And we've seen other places where it's made a difference that we've called out, like when the whole new page experience was released. And when that got called out and a bunch of customers jumped on, they're like, whoa, we didn't know about this. And they reacted and they pulled it back and they fixed it and they rolled it. They show here's what our fixes are going to be. And we're like, looks good. And they rolled it out and people liked it. And we said, that's a great way to do it. But of course, this team, which always seems to be.
Yeah.
I got another one I'm going to do in a second. And I got something else I'm going to say to kind of wrap both of these up, that a feeling that I'm getting closer to that's really starting to piss me off. But Dan's post, it's in the issue list. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. It's issue number 10598. Did you want to say anything else about that one?
Nope, all good. You can move on to your
The one thing I'll just say about Dan's is that the thing that really irks me about this one is that it looks like the UI changes that they've done, that they are the new changes that are part of like a menu at the top, which we've all traditionally called and has been used as the command menu, where our custom command set extensions have gone.
Yes.
They have absolutely said the reason why your stuff isn't there is because this is not the command menu. This is something else. Like, so you took the command menu and you put it somewhere else, way off to the right, that I only know it's there if I click on it and it's using an icon that doesn't imply it's more. There's more menus here. It just shows something. It shows something else there.
I could go on a huge rant about that. And actually, our next episode of Ask in Praxis, which is next week, will be on this very topic. And we will rant significantly about the changes for the user experience in those libraries. And that is a big one. There's a bunch, but that's a big one.
Do you have a link for that we can drop in the show notes?
Yes, I do. And I will share it. Yep.
Awesome. The other one that I found this out, unfortunately, in the middle of my workshop. This is a acknowledged bug by Microsoft. It is only affecting a developer experience, and it is only affecting lists, which is kind of where I'm going to go on my little soapbox. Very brief, but I'm going to go on it. If you are creating and developing a field customizer or a list form customizer. So both of those are SharePoint Framework extension types, one of the four. Well, I guess technically one of the five, but no one uses search extensions, so really one of the four. What happens is that when you do all the stuff you're supposed to do to make it work in development, so SharePoint Framework developers, you know this, just to give you some context, when you go to test your field customizer or your form customizer, you use a specially crafted URL or query string on the URL that tells the SharePoint framework to load your manifest from your local host web server that's running, that has where your code is written for your field customizer or form customizer, and tells it, hey, go through and register on the page so I can play with it and test it out and use it. It loads the manifest, it loads your bundle, but it never executes your stuff. And so nothing ever happens. And so it looks like it's not running. So you can see the request happening local in your console. You can see it return back the manifest.js. You can see it return back the JavaScript bundle and the localization file, but it doesn't ever do anything. And if you look in the console of the browser, there are no errors, and there is something that implies a content security policy / CORS issue, but it basically says, hey, we preloaded this file that you told us to preload, but nothing ever did anything with it after a few seconds. So, but it's a warning. Effectively what's happening is that they're loading stuff, but the list infrastructure isn't actually executing the extensions. And so the way around it is if you do a full-on deployment and then install it, then everything will work just fine. But then you don't have it's a slower kind of iterative cycle. So you can get around it. It's just a super inconvenient thing for developers right now. I got to tell you, after seeing this stuff with document libraries, after seeing what happened with lists, with field customizers last summer in June of 2025, when they said they're going to, they deprecated them and they were going to retire them, and then they backed off of that. And now seeing this, I'm sick of the list team. I'm sick of the document library team. I'm sick of the way that they do their business. I flat out told the guy that runs SharePoint, I was like, dude, how can we trust you guys? Because I don't think you can. If I'm talking to a customer right now and they want to do something that's going to customize a list or a document library, I'm like, cool, here's how you can do it. But here's the thing. You better be ready that at some point Microsoft is going to screw you over and that something is going to break. And it may fix it and they may see it as a bug, but it's going to happen out of the blue. And I'm sorry, they say that they're getting better and they're going to do better, but you can't trust them. You can't trust it. You can't believe it, because their track record says that they break it, they say, I'm sorry, they go back and they fix it, and they say, we'll do better and not do it again. And then they do it again. So I'm sorry, frankly, Microsoft, I call your bullshit. I'm sick of it. I'm so freaking sick of it. And I've lost confidence in you, especially on this one. So when it comes to list extensibility, will I use a field customizer? Sure. Will I use a command set extension? Sure. Will I use a form customizer extension? Sure. Will I also tell my customers that beware and make sure that, just know that something may break on you? Sure. And that is so freaking crappy, because those extensions have been there. With the exception of form customizers, those have been there. The SharePoint Framework released in February of 2017. These have been there since April or May of 2017. They have been there for 8 freaking years, and they keep telling us this is the way that you customize stuff. Yep. And they keep screwing it over.
Yep. I completely agree. And I think there's from the conversations I've been seeing, there's just a lack of awareness that this stuff even exists by certain subgroups inside of Microsoft. It's like, how do you not even know how the platform that you're developing on works before you change it? Like, that's what it feels like. You know what I mean? Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what it feels like. And I guess my big rant here is, why are we not getting more advance notice that these massive changes are happening so that we can work in a sort of preview, early release state to validate and give feedback? I didn't hear anything about this new document library user experience until Ignite. Just didn't even know it was coming. And granted, I do not have time to see everything, but 9 times out of 10, one of us will have heard something and start passing it around and go, hey, did you check out, or did you see, or whatever? I have heard, I didn't hear anything. And I'm a little bit like, how is it? Not to mention, the document library still look nothing like lists. Like, why is the user experience for things that are essentially the same different? Whatever.
Right there with you, Julie. I mean, it's like, that's what my complaint to them was about this too. Like, we never heard about this. Oh, we put it as a targeted release here. I live in this SharePoint framework. You say it's been in a targeted release for how many months? I never saw it. And I look at the message center. I get that digest email every Monday morning, and I scan it to see, what have I missed? And there's a lot of things I see in there going, seriously, you're going to announce that? That's a feature? You missed a period. You didn't spell separate the right way, so you have to issue a message release and saying you put too many E's in there. It should have been an A. They
Yeah.
don't do that, but that's effectively what it is. I'm like, that's so small, it's not even necessary. And then you do a document library change like this, the whole UI. My God, you should have seen my class this week when somebody went through and brought up the whole document library thing. And I called this thing out and they looked at it and they're like, oh my God, like why, what is in the world? Why are they adding so many more clicks? I thought the point was to have as few clicks as possible to get to the work that you want to do. These are less usable. I'm like, I took all these screenshots. I'm like, you guys just keep going, but you need to go post these quotes here. And they're like, well, please don't share our names. I'm like, that's okay. I have lots of screenshots from the chat. I just will not show your names for this stuff. But oh my God. Okay. One more thing, and then we'll talk about our feature discussion today. The SharePoint in the December 2025 roadmap for the SharePoint framework, Microsoft published that they have a new developer toolbar that is coming. And the idea behind this, so it is in. Let me just finish that statement first. We'll have a link to the roadmap announcement or roadmap article in the show notes. What they've said is that it's coming in January. So it's coming this month. So by the time this episode drops, I think this, we drop on the January the 28th. Maybe it'll be there by then. I mean, the one thing that we've seen that's consistent about the SharePoint framework is they miss dates. So they break things and they miss dates. So are we going to see it in January? I mean, they're telling us like going, hey, the next release of SharePoint framework is going to be, it's going to be like February or March. And I'm just like,
so
end
April?
of Q1. Yeah, I just say end of Q1, beginning of Q2. And they're like, well, the one after that's going to be in April. And I'm like, Q2, Q3. Like that's just expect that. If it's early, if it's on time, then cool. So this new toolbar, we might have it by then, by the time this episode release. What it does, I don't want to get your hopes up because it's not as, oh my God, it's so cool. It's not a huge thing, I think. So what it's going, there's a couple pieces about this. First of all, this is what they said in the announcement, in the roadmap, that it is the replacement for the hosted workbench that we have to test web parts today. Now I'll give you a little bit of color on that we used to have a local workbench where we could test our web parts, and then they got rid of that. And then but they still have a hosted workbench that's there. And Microsoft has for a while, I think that they've wanted to get rid of that because number one, it only works for web parts and adaptive card extensions. And it doesn't work the same way like on a real SharePoint page. So there's other stuff we can't really do with it. And they say it's expensive in terms of trying to maintain it. And then they say it's also expensive because of, I don't know, whatever else they were saying about it. We already can't use it for doing extensions. We need real SharePoint pages. And a lot of people have already been switching over and just to say, well, screw it, I'm just going to use a real page to test out my SharePoint Framework web part as well that I'm testing locally.
Yeah,
Fine.
I've never used the hosted workbench. I use the dev build.
Right. So
Always.
you're also in that camp. So what Microsoft is doing is they've said that the hosted workbench is this dev toolbar is a replacement for that. They haven't said when they're going to get if so when they're going to get rid of the hosted workbench. I'm trying to push them like going, why don't you just leave it there and just say we're not doing anything with this, but it doesn't harm anything right there, but just know it's limited. You should be doing a real page. Go check out this article. We'll see what they do. What this dev toolbar is going to be is think like a new thing at the top of the sweet bar, like above the sweet bar where like the waffle is. And it'll show you, it'll appear when you are doing a dev build. So when you're testing out a page on using the query string stuff that we have, it will show you the details from the manifest that you're serving up from your local machine. It will show you the details of the web part if you're looking at a page with a custom web part on it that you're using. So like the web part manifest, anything else with that. It gives you a link to open up the SharePoint Framework developer dashboard, which is just something that shows up at the bottom of the page. It basically shows you stuff from like the log object, which I don't know. I'm not all impressed. I'm not whatever. So it shows you that, and it shows you a few other things that's on the developer dashboard. What was the other thing I was going to say about that it did? it gives you a way to log a bug. Sweet, because we need an easier way to do that. And it also gives you, when you're doing like a extensions development and you add that query string value to load the script. But if you do like go to one page to the next page and then come back, you see the query string's gone, but it's still trying to load your
Ergo why I use a dev build.
Yeah. So if you like literally open up a new tab and go to the page, so you're not using what's under the covers, it's the page router. If you aren't using that, then you get like a clean experience. Well, they're giving you a stop button to say like, just stop using it. So I don't want you to think, I don't want anybody to think like this is going to be awesome. It's going to give me a ton of stuff. It's not that. It is just, it's an extra thing that's like a nice embellishment, but it is not like, oh my God.
Too bad they didn't take some ideas from Stefan. Stefan, maybe 2 years ago, built a SharePoint Framework app customizer extension that he called Live Reloader. And I use it in a few places. I can use it with the dev build. You could use it with whatever. But essentially, the Live Reloader thing, you can turn it on and off. Like you put a toggle switch on it. When you turn it on, the web page monitors localhost to note changes and then live reloads your page for you. So like if you're working on something and you're like coding, the page, if you have like side by side, for instance, let's say your code on the left and the page, loaded on the right, his live reloader monitors your local host. And when you change and something saves and there's a rebuild, the page reloads automatically for you. So you can just like sort of stay in your context window. And then he has a whole bunch of little add-on fun features, theme stuff that would be more his types of stuff, like being able to like inspect the theme deeply and CSS variables and stuff like that. But it's a very cool little thing. And they could have easily just stolen some stuff from him and or given him credit or whatever. Would have been some nice things to add. But yeah.
I remember this. I don't think I really grokked it. And
I use it. It's awesome when you need it. The thing is, I don't need it so often. Only because of Stefan. Because of Stefan, and the way we work together, the way like I don't need that feature because he already did it, right? So he sort of needs it for himself. But if you're building the UX and you're constantly changing the UX, it is awesome to have. Most of the time, I get the UX from him. I paste it in. It works perfectly, and I don't have to like iterate on the UX. So it's not as often that I need it. Yeah. I'm already got the final thing, but sometimes I use it, especially if like I'm trying to get some finicky UX action to like behave the way I want to. Then, you're changing code and, it's nice that it reloads and then you can test it again really quickly. So I do use it. It's just not as much as I would use it if I were writing my own HTML and CSS.
Interesting. I should take a look at this. I haven't seen this before.
Yeah, it's really good.
I remember,
as is everything from Stefan.
I know why, because, so there's no like video or anything showing how it works. It's just kind of, or at least I didn't
Stefan,
see that.
I know you're going to listen to this episode. Get on it, my friend.
That's what messed me up. Okay, so I remember when I saw this. I'm not calling him out for this. I'm just saying when I saw it, it was explained.
He's going to be mad. I'm going to get a chat any second now.
His stuff is awesome. His stuff is absolutely awesome.
It's so awesome.
I saw it. I was like live reload, but I didn't, and I read the article, but I was like, I don't understand why I need this. And because when I make a change, it does it for me. And now what I'm wondering is, because there's like an HTML hot module reloader like kind of built into the SharePoint Framework 1.22, then I'm wondering like, does this?
You may not need it anymore if that's the case. If the web page is now reload, I'm not on 122 yet for my day-to-day work, so I don't really know.
Okay, so I don't. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I had kind of. I remember when he put this out. I just don't. I never.
But he put that out a couple of years ago. I want to say.
The repo looks like it. Yeah, a couple of years ago. You're right, because it looks like.
So I've been using it for quite a while.
The last release was in 2024. The last code update was 2 years ago. The last commit he did, and that's not to say that he's not maintaining it. It just maybe like it's done. There's not much more to do. It's done. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a utility. So once it's done, it's done, and it was working great, and there was really nothing we needed to change. I know he personally uses it a lot,
because again, he's building UXs in SharePoint and he has to test all that stuff out.
July 2024. Okay. All right, Julie. Now that we have gone off on our soapbox and everything, would you like to switch over to the feature so that we can get onto another soapbox?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. You had an idea today for our show that we have 25-ish minutes to talk about and picks.
That's what I was like.
So what you wanted to talk about was around data-bound controls. So
yeah, there's an architectural pattern there that I think is worth having a discussion about.
Yeah.
Certainly a choice.
So a data-bound control, do you want to define it? You want me to do it? And then you talk about
No. Yeah, go ahead. You define.
Okay.
We really have a plan, folks. Honestly, we get on these calls. We have a plan.
You know what though? We have a plan. Like we're looking at an outline that we have for what we're going to go through, but we don't plan like, okay, I'm going to say this and then you say this. We don't have a script.
I know. We don't have a script. That's true. Right. It is. Okay. Go ahead. You define them and then I'll rant.
Okay.
That'll make sense.
You've got fundamentally, the way I see it is we have two different kinds of controls. This has nothing to do with the SharePoint framework, has nothing to do with Teams, nothing to do with Microsoft. This is just in general on the web. You've got two types of controls. I call them dumb controls and smart controls. You can also look at them as data-bound controls instead of smart controls. What is the difference? If you use Bootstrap or Fluent UI or Fluent UI React or H2O or Material Design, all of those things are, generally speaking, all of those are dumb controls. What is that? That is a collection of UI controls. I always want to call it like web components or web controls, but that's a different thing.
Yeah.
They are UI controls that we can use that are things like drop-down lists or toggles or grids or tables of data. They are controls that allow you to use in your app that have a certain behavior and they have a certain look and feel or certain kind of functionality, like they can be themed so that they all look and feel the same way as everything else on your app. But what they don't have is any data in them. So a great example is I have a drop-down list. If I want to show the names of all of the document libraries in a SharePoint site, I have to go get that data, and then I have to initialize that drop-down list with all of those document libraries in the drop-down list. If I have a toggle control that I want it to show the current state of being in a developer mode or being in a published page, or I'm in the edit mode of a page, I would have to go get the current state of the page and set the check state on that toggle to either one of those. What a smart control or a data-bound control is one that can go get the data that I need. So I could have a drop-down list that isn't a drop-down list. It's a SharePoint list picker that uses a dumb control drop-down list, but it also knows how to go fetch all of the document libraries or lists from the current SharePoint site and then populate the drop-down list. So that's the two differences between those.
Yep.
Now, Madam Turner.
Well, I have talked about this before, so this is not going to come as a shock to anybody, but that I have a strong opinion. I will say back in the old days, when I was doing like ASP.NET, we did use a lot of data-bound controls. I remember specifically that there were companies that were selling, and I can't think of the names of them because that's not how my brain works. Yeah, Telerik, that's the one. Oh, I love that you read my mind through a computer. Like you getting Telerik controls or whatever, you were like, yeah, baby. And they had some data, you could data bind them, like that was setting a property to data bind them. And actually it becomes a middle ground to what we're going to talk about, actually, that you set a property to how that control gets data bound. In my mind, that is similar to how I use H2O. But the bigger point here is there's an architectural decision to be made that when doing client-side development, I feel extremely strongly that it is better to consolidate the business logic, the loading, the caching, the fetching of the data that your user experience needs, and keeping that process separated from the user experience, the UI, the HTML, the CSS, and the browser-based interactions that those controls have, right? And I like to separate those concerns. And that's just how I like to architect my solutions. But because of that, using data-bound controls is not something I lean into, because I'll give a great example. What if I have, 10 components on the page, and each one of them loads their data individually? If the page refreshes, that means each one of those controls, unless you specially code them differently, will reload that data every time that page reloads, right? Each time each one of those components re-renders. So, you have to think about the framework that you might be in. But each time one of those components re-renders, it's going to go make that data call over again. When in reality, that data might already be there in local cache or in a global service or whatever it might be. And I like to see that separation of concern. Plus, it gives me a lot more control over the nuance of how I want that data in the control to be. So if I want to set a property in some other control that might filter data that's in those controls, I can filter that separately and maybe keep both states together so that I can quickly switch back and forth without having to go again, do a data fetch from a RESTful endpoint or a database or whatever it might be. I like that separation of concern. So I have never leaned in since I started doing client-side HTML, CSS with RESTful server-based solutions type client-side development into data-bound controls. When we did ASP.NET, that was sort of a different thing. And this is where I'm sort of going with that. When you did like the Telerik thing and you were data binding it, is very similar to what I'm talking about, because I have a service that has its data. And what I'm doing is in my React component, I'm saying, oh, the items in the drop-down list for this component should come from this service. This service dot drop-down items is the items that this dumb control should render. And so it is similar to that old data binding idea. The idea that the control itself would know just magically how to go get that data, that is more concerning to me as far as like just being chatty, not being well controlled, not being well architected. So that's the fundamental sort of mental state that I'm in, is about the differences of the two.
Yeah, you kind of talked on this too. The thing that I dislike about data-bound controls is that usually the developers. This is going to sound like I'm attacking one person or one group of people, and I'm not doing that, because I see this in a bunch of different controls. I do not like assuming a dependency that somebody else has made if it's going to conflict with the rest of the stuff that I'm doing. So, for example, there's a specific scenario I'm thinking about, because it's actually affecting one of my coaching clients. So in the SharePoint Framework, we have two projects from the PnP group that are data-bound controls. There's the PnP Reusable React Controls, and there's the PnP Reusable Property Pane Controls, and they're both React sets of controls. And under the covers, they're data-bound controls, and they make some of our stuff. They do make things a little bit easier. So I can say, I want a list picker. Cool. You just grab the list picker. You set some properties on it, like don't show me hidden lists, only show me these lists, or blah, blah, whatever. So I'm just going to give you an example. They use the PnP.js library, which means that they have chosen to take a dependency on the PnP.js library, and because it's running on the same page as my web part's running or the other stuff that I'm doing, it may impact other decisions that I make. And when you take a dependency on somebody else's stuff, and that the thing you're taking dependency on has lots of other dependencies, their decisions immediately trickle into whatever you're doing. So how does that impact you? Real world scenario, and I'll let you talk about the details of this if you like.
Yep.
But I've got a customer that I'm working with, longtime customer, that they have a product that they use PnP.js but then they also use property paying controls from this library, which use PnP.js. And I don't, off the top of my head, I can't recall if they're using, well, I'll touch on that in just a minute. What they're seeing is on occasion when they take that, when the page goes into edit mode, nothing shows up. Nothing shows up in the page. None of the content shows up in their web part. If they refresh the page, it works. Weird. Sometimes there's a caching issue that goes on too. And what it looks like to me, and I think you've kind of confirmed this based on what whatever, I'll let you say, is that they are using in their web part, my client is using a certain version of PnP.js, but these packages that they're depending on use an older version of it. And the dependency that they have taken and the dependency that I have taken, we both are using the same library, but that library doesn't like two different versions of it running on the same page. Now, it's your library, or you're one of the main maintainers of it, and you're PnP.js. And as a footnote, I'd love it if people would chime in, put in the comments, whatever. Would you like to hear more about PnP.js? Because I'd love to have a few episodes on that. But so to me, like I look at this and I go, well, if I was going to use one of these controls, I'd want to go look and see how you guys are implementing it and say, oh, you're using this library. I really wish you just use the standard, just raw SharePoint REST API, so that you're not going to conflict with anything I do. And oh, that means that we got to write all the code for using Graph. Well, then I would appreciate if you would use the raw Graph REST API or the Graph SDK, JavaScript SDK that's in the SharePoint framework that I'm already having to take a dependency on. So I would like it if you would do that too, so that I don't have the same kind of like baggage that you guys are implying on me. Yeah,
and I think that's the key here, right? So you mentioned the two different controls, and I took a quick look. The reusable React controls one is taking a dependency on PnP.js version 2.5 specifically, and the PnP reusable property pane controls are taking a dependency on PnP.js version 1.3.11. Those two libraries are so incredibly old. It's hard to even comprehend, right, but at least we're on 4 and we're about to drop 5. What? Major release. So, well, not about to drop 5. I shouldn't really say that. We've been very slow, but 4 is so incredibly stable. We haven't even had to make a release in 6 months. Like there's just nothing, like 4 is just rock solid. So the issue here is that between this, a little history on PnP.js, version 2 of PnP.js was a little bit of a bloated situation. There was a lot in the library itself, and the way it worked, which was fine at the time, but really just started, we realized with issues coming in or whatever, that there was a fundamental problem in that it created a global variable, a global SP variable that you would initialize. So you'd say, you'd start the project, you'd import SP from the PnP SP package, and you'd say, SP initialize, and you'd pass it in the context from the SharePoint framework, and it would get its token, it would set everything up, it would know what site it's in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it was global and it was fixed, and there was no real way to sort of change that global variable. And we realized it was a real problem. And so between that and wanting to make the package leaner, so we could have a smaller footprint and make it more flexible, version 3 sort of rewrote the entire engine of PnP.js to make it more flexible, much more clean as far as like the dependencies we took. We went as minimal as we possibly could on the dependencies. Patrick Rogers was one of the lead architects of rewriting the internals of it and built something he coined the term timeline, and these ideas of queryables and whatever. And it just made the whole library so much cleaner. The problem is there is no now global SP variable. And the problem with the data-bound controls is that they rely on the fact that that global SP variable exists. You don't pass it into the data-bound control. The data-bound control expects an SP global variable to just exist and be initialized. So when you use these React controls and you try to use PnP.js version 3 or 4 in your SharePoint Framework component at the same time, you are now in a situation where that SP global variable has to initialize, and it's sort of conflicting with the way the new PnP.js version works, and they don't play nice together. Not to mention the way that over time pages have re-architected and how that context variable works. You can end up with the situation you're talking about where the global SP variable sort of drops its context or loses its context, and then stuff doesn't work. So, we have been moving PnP.js along with how SharePoint Online is behaving and how just projects in general, upgrading for the SharePoint framework, upgrading to newer versions of TypeScript and newer versions of Node.js, et cetera, et cetera. And so these two controls have been left so far behind, and they kind of need a complete re-architecture if they're going to still exist in this data-bound universe. And in my mind, if they need to still exist as data-bound controls, then they need to sort of go what we started talking about, that Telerik route, and be able to at least assign an SP object to it. Whether you agree with my viewpoint on whether or not there should be separation of concerns, that is your architectural, the developer's architectural decision to make. I'm not trying to tell you it's wrong. I mean, in my mind, it's not the right one, but that's my opinion and not necessarily your opinion. Other people should do things the way they want to do based on what they're doing and what makes sense to them. But the fact that these two things are out of sync is a major problem. And the problem is taking that dependency. I don't think that's working out well. So
I don't disagree with you. I mean, everything you said, I have nothing else to add to that because you nailed it. And I mean, you frankly, when this episode comes out, I'm grabbing a time code and sending it to my client because I'm like going, I found the issue. This is what we're having right here. And I saw there was a discussion where people were like, hey, for these specific controls, maybe we should have an effort where we try and get people to come in and upgrade them to the latest version of PnP.js. And I'm looking at it like, can I just be the elephant in the room and say, like, I think you should get rid of PnP.js for these controls for no other reason so that you don't have to keep upgrading to the latest version of PnP.js, and you don't have to put on the consumers of these controls the decision that, hey, do I have to upgrade my stuff because to use your latest version of this? It's like, just make it to where like if somebody's going to use if I'm going to create something and somebody's going to end up using it, I don't want you to have to say like, oh shoot, you're using this, and so that I have to use that version of that. Oh shoot. And instead it's just kind of like going, I want to use that, and going, cool, we're getting data, we can do all this stuff for you. Like,
I mean, you can still use the React reusable controls, but if you're going to load PnP.js into the page as well, you have to load the same version of PnP.js. But then know the caveat of what I said about the way pages work in SharePoint. Stuff can get wackadoodle with that global variable. And there's not much I can suggest. What's really concerning at the very least is that PnP, I didn't know this until I recently looked, that reusable property pane controls uses 1.3.11. That should at the very least be using 2.5. They should be kept in sync, if at the very least. And there's, so whatever. Anyway, but this is again why Stefan and I built H2O, because we wanted dumb controls, but that, used the Microsoft's design framework so that we could get visually appropriate controls, but that we fully control the data. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the approach I would prefer as well. And the only thing that I would want it to go a little bit further was that, like when I'm using Fluent UI, right, there are some things where I would like to say, I like Fluent UI. I like their table. I like their grid. But I know that the Teams team has done some stuff when they take like the grid that the Fluent UI guys do, and then they go through and add some other stuff that's Teamsy, and then or I look at the SharePoint team and they say, hey, our lists are rendered a certain way that is kind of based on Fluent UI, but then we've kind of done some additional stuff. Like I'd like a control that is the SharePoint grid, right? Yeah. So render that out. oh yeah, we'll give you the SharePoint grid. What list do you want to bind to? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you the data. I just want you to render it out. Now, if you want to go through and give me an option to where I can bind and let you go get the data for me, cool. But don't make me do that, and don't make that as part of a dependency in the package to where if I'm giving you my data, then I'm not taking a dependency on how you're getting that data.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And I mean, the bigger problem with we could go down a rabbit hole, but they're not using Fluent UI anyway. So like,
yeah, they're using maybe something older than that. So.
Some variation on the whole theme. Yeah. I mean, this is why I got Stefan to build me a list control.
I tell people, look, I had nothing against those controls, but I do tell people it's like going, hey, these are great. This is a great open source sample to see how you can do stuff, specifically how to build property pane controls.
Yes.
Personally, I advise people not to use them and just say, use it as inspiration. If you use them, fine, but here's what here's the baggage that's coming along with it.
Can I just say I don't use property pane controls anymore either?
That's fine too. I mean, I know
I just essentially just put like it. Only thing I would put in there is like some static piece of data, like that if I had a text field and I needed like some property set that's just general, but all the editing is a user experience that I do now. Once you're in edit mode, I give you an entire edit experience in
like
the
a dialog
UX.
that pops up.
Yeah, if I
like
need it that far.
Like the image web parts like that, where like you add the image web part to the page, and when you go to say add the image, you put edit mode, you add the image, then it's like it opens a dialog for like a file picker, and it's like, well, this isn't going to work in the property pane. Like I know that's why we do it. Yeah. I like that too, but
yeah, anyway. You can reuse Microsoft for that one, right? Patrick.
No, but that's another
open source that. It's very cool. I used it if you want to know how to use it, go look at Learning Pathways because it uses it.
All right. Well.
All right. Woo.
There we go.
Jeez, look at the time.
I know. That's what we always. That's how we roll. Okay, Julie, it's time to go picky. Do you have a pick for us this week?
I do. I had put it in my watch later list, but never got around to it, and then thinking that it was actually really long, but it's only like 20 minutes. I finally watched Scott Hanselman's Text Promised TED Talk. He did a TEDx Portland talk called Tech Promised Everything, Did It Deliver? And I wasn't sure what to expect, but I like listening to him present. I think he's a good presenter. So I was like, I think I'm going to watch this. It was really good. It was really well done. The premise is he said technology promised us connection, convenience, and creativity. And did it deliver? And so he kind of went subject by subject and sort of gave a background on what it promised and made a few sort of statements on what it may or may not have delivered on that. And if you think he's taking a very Microsoft-centric approach to his answers, you would be wrong. So anyway, it was a really good watch and really interesting. And I didn't really know how much things that he had invented. So it was interesting to get to know him as a person a little bit more through that talk as well. So it was really good. I would recommend.
Thanks for sharing that. I just jumped over, added that. It is 19 minutes, so that's very consumable.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So mine is also a YouTube, is on YouTube. I have shared this in the past. I don't think I've shared it on our show, but this is one of the coolest things to me as a space geek person. So there is a playlist that this guy had done as part of a documentary. I think I'll get rid of this cough in 2026. That's a New Year's resolution. And please don't send me home remedies, guys. I am so tired of the red onion vinegar putting on all my feet or drinking and putting it in a jar and taking it to. I know, I get it. All right, so, and I just don't do it. But anyway, so the thing that I like, the thing that's so cool about this one, this is called the Apollo Guidance Computer, and it's a restoration project. And what it is a guy who used to work for NASA. When NASA was doing like a bunch of like throwing stuff away, you could buy NASA tech by the pound.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy, right?
And so he went and bought stuff and he threw it into like a storage locker, whatever storage unit. And ends up what he bought was a bunch of stuff from the Apollo program and the Apollo guidance computer that everyone jokes about now is your phone is more powerful than the computer. Mm-hmm. But what these guys did is there are 4 engineers who got together in a hotel room. I think it was in Houston. I can't remember when they did it, but they tried to bring it back to life. And it's they have manuals, they have some documentation, but it's a lot of reverse engineering. And it's so much like bringing in the electronics version of a stethoscope and explaining how core memory works and how the memory modules work, and they pull it out and you can show things working and how they can bring things back to life. It's really cool. It's like 2 or 3 guys that they're older age, and this one skinny kid, and I say kid, but one skinny kid, and the kid had to leave at one point because he's one of the flight engineers for SpaceX, and so he's he has to go through. Had to go back and they were doing a mission, so he's had to go back and be there for the launch, and then came back. He's like, yeah, I'm back. I'm helping it out. So it's a really good playlist. There's lots of stuff on there. It's cool, pretty geeky.
That's awesome. I'll just show it really quick. My circuit board, my lunar landing command module circuit board.
One of these days, I'm going to visit
one of my
you
favorite
to see
persons on the planet Earth who has recently passed, which is why I'm getting a little. But she worked on this. She was a project manager who worked on this lunar landing command module, and this circuit board she still had. And when she found out she had terminal cancer, she mailed it to me with a note. And I'm just so happy to have this from her. She's a wonderful woman. So rest in peace, Eva.
It's cool. It's cool. I would love to have had an opportunity to talk to her about her experience and what she did. So
fascinatingly amazing woman. So miss her a lot.
Well, you're lucky to have had time to talk to her and spend time with her. So I appreciate the stuff you share with me about her too. But okay.
All right.
Well, that's a better note to end on than the whole bitch fest that we did.
It really is. It really is. It really is.
But anyway, well, Julie, another show in the bag.
Yes, it is.
Have this out, and we're hitting our quarter century mark.
I know.
The next episode.
Yeah, I know. So crazy. I was looking back and I'm like, we started this in May. So
I meant to go back and check that. I didn't know how long it had
May
been.
16th, I think, was our first episode of this iteration. So very cool.
Cool.
Anyway,
cool.
Yes, excellent. All right. Hey, if anybody has ideas of what they want to hear from us next as far as specific topics, not news topics, drop a show note. We love it. We did get a really interesting show note about Anthropic's new tool search tool. So we should maybe chat about that a little bit.
Oh, I missed that. Is that new?
It is new. It dropped after our last episode. It dropped on January 15th, I believe. So it's very cool. So that's a little teaser. Maybe we'll talk about that very soon.
I need to go find that then. I missed that quote. I have a reminder to go check all of our socials to find out where somebody dropped a comment, and it actually hit it today. And I was like, got to get my run, got to get my breakfast, got to do a podcast recording, and then I'll go back and look at it later. So I got to catch up.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, Julie, good to see you.
Good to
Have
see
a great
you.
weekend. I get to see you in person, I think, before we do our next maybe before we do our next episode.
February 6th. I
don't know.
Actually, we have to talk about that because I'm traveling on the day of our recording. So.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Hey, maybe we get to record in person.
Ooh, that's a great idea. We could do that.
Okay.
Very fun.
All right. Regardless, good to see you. Good conversation today.
Good to see you.
And I will see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Did you like this episode? Please like and share it with your friends. We're on YouTube, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. You'll find all the links in the video description below. And if you have a question, head over to our site at codedeploygo.live, where you can send it in. Also, sign up for our mailing list on our site at codedeploygo.live to learn about future episodes, opportunities for listeners, and get the show notes from each episode sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.